Thank you very much to everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for popping over. So I need to remind people that people from around the world celebrate things in a different way. And I live in the United States. And in the United States, unlike other countries, it's a very open and public environment where people are allowed to express their thoughts and are allowed to identify themselves as whatever they'd like to identify themselves in. It might not necessarily be the case in other countries, but in the United States where we live, we have the freedom of choice and the freedom of speech. And because of being in the United States, I am allowed to express and talk to people about it's the LGBTQ Pride Month, National Pride Month. It might not be happening in London, it might not be happening in Egypt, it might not be happening in Brazil, but it's definitely happening here right now in the United States, and it is a big discussion. And we are supposed to have the capabilities of allowing everybody to speak their mind. And I think it's important that people express themselves. Sure, I'm married and happy with my husband, but I also believe that people have a choice to decide who they want to be with. You don't have to have your parents tell you who you should be with if that is not the person you want to be with. You choose the person you want to be with. At least it happens here in the United States. I'm sure in other countries you're probably forced to get married and stuff to whoever it is your family chooses you to marry. And it's unfortunate, but I know that there are countries out there that do that, and it's not who I am. I have a slight South African accent because I'm part South African, but I'm mostly American, okay? I have my American beliefs. I believe in different things. I don't believe that you have to marry the same identity as you. You don't have to, like, the skin color can be different. You don't have to marry somebody who's just a male. If you're a female, you can do it the other way around. There are things that I believe in that maybe you might not necessarily believe in. But as an American citizen coming and talking to you on a public format or platform, from an American perspective, okay, don't get at me because I'm an American, okay? I believe the world should be at peace. That's what I believe. I don't know if our government necessarily believes that, but I believe that we should be at peace with the world. We shouldn't be fighting. We shouldn't be arguing. We should be happy. We should be celebrating. Now, what has happened is technology has taken over where society assumes that you're seeing everything from a different perspective. When none of this was around, we didn't see things the way people see it now. We didn't have evidence to identify certain things that might be happening globally. It's a good and a bad thing to have technology. I liked how I was raised without technology. I liked going outside and making friends with people and climbing the trees and the rocks and going to riverbeds and playing in the dirt. It was just something I enjoyed doing. This new world of technology and growing up in an environment, it's not an environment where technology has taken over your advances. It's not necessarily the healthiest. I have to admit, I don't even think it's that healthy. I'm trying ways to use it to incorporate technology into a little bit more of a healthier environment. Like getting my exercise and utilizing social media to get me more active. Like being live on TikTok helps me with my training and my exercise, and maybe it helps other people too. So there are things that I'm doing for myself that I'm hoping I am helping other people in other formats. And make no mistake, I'm not getting paid on YouTube to discuss anything on here. I want to eventually become something on here because I think it is important that at 44 years old, I should have my own channel. Yes, this is like I have another channel just focusing on music, and on occasion I would just film some performances or whatever. But this is totally different. This is like a whole, I'm doing it for the sake of helping people see it on a different perspective. I'm not just doing music. I'm not just doing art. I'm doing a conglomeration of things. I've studied photography. I don't have a darkroom at the moment, but I can show people how to develop film and all that stuff because I still have a Pentax camera, can you believe it? Who owns a Pentax camera these days? Nobody. I don't know many people who even try to utilize a non-digital camera at this day and age. But I still have one because that is what I learned. I learned a lot of these things on my own. I learned piano without having it on a keyboard. I learned it on a formal piano. I have a keyboard now because it's electronic and it's easier to carry. I mean, you know, it's not heavy like a piano is. But I've learned everything differently. I'm not a child. I've learned things differently. The way I've been raised. Okay, so I come from a family that's predominantly conservative, okay? But I grew up as a non-conservative. I don't believe that, I believe everybody should be happy with who they choose to be with. Like, if I had kids, I'd tell the kids, as long as you're safe and secure and happy, that's good for me. I'm happy that you're happy. That's what I would help. That's what I would see. So, you know, and if people have problems and they have issues with talking to their parents about what they feel about certain things, then, you know, where do you go to find help? You find communities that help you understand your situation. So you find groups, right? That's the whole thing. But don't just think that, you know, social media, you guys need to realize you're not just living in one country now. You're now going around the world to meet people from around the world on the internet. It's not just from the country you're living in. It's from global perspective. Local, global. You have to think outside of the box. You can't just think only your country. You have to think outside of the box and how the rest of the world thinks. This internet has become a research space for people to find research from all over the world. It's not just a divided country. It's not just a divide in how countries believe. It's where you can find and communicate with people internationally. And I like going live for that very reason, because I'm able to meet wonderful people like, you know, people from Egypt and people from Portugal and people from, I don't know, some other part in London. You can meet people everywhere. It's just the time is different. Don't forget, my time period is daytime now. And maybe on your side, it's nighttime. So these are all the other things you need to think about, global and local. It's not just your perspective. It's now opening up your mind to a larger perspective. Are you ready to learn about the world? I studied the arts because I wanted to learn about global world history. And that's what I did. I didn't just learn education in the United States. I learned education in Japanese in Japan. I learned my education in South Africa with a formal English training like Oxford Dictionary training and grammar and all that stuff. We didn't have technology to use. We had to use a dictionary and an encyclopedia. I don't know if you guys know an encyclopedia, but that's what I used. Different time periods. Just because I've modernized the way I dress doesn't mean to say that I'm not conservative in the way I believe the Middle East. We're not living in Europe. We're living in the United States. And right now in the United States, this is a time for people to celebrate, to rejoice how they feel about their people. Like their person, who they are and who they love. It's like a world peace day. People, whether or not you like it, is entirely how you were raised, right? If you were raised with people who despised and hated that view in life, then this is where our conversation ends, because I believe that people have a right to choose. I'm not, just because I wear a hairpiece doesn't say that I'm not Muslim. However, I do have family members that have married into the Muslim perspective and religion. I don't necessarily believe in the Muslim beliefs, okay? That's just not what I believe in. I believe in women having rights, okay? I believe in people being allowed to speak what they have to say. I believe that repressing a person's standpoint and view is not the way to change the world's perspective on how to change, to be better people. To be better people means to accept and acknowledge and to listen to others. And if you're not listening to others, then obviously you're not growing. That's just how I see it. So this is just a time to reflect on people, where everybody stands, how they personally feel about who they are and where they stand in the world of discrepancies, and how they feel about themselves, and are they happy with themselves? I know I'm happy with myself. I've had a couple of bumps and bumpy rides along the way, but I have predominantly grown out of the phase of not understanding to understanding. Also understanding that it's not just your perspective, but it's about a global perspective. And you're not just coming from your head and from where you're coming from, but you're thinking, you have to think out of the box now. You have to remember that just because you might not have gone or traveled to another country doesn't mean to say the person next to you might not have been living in different countries already, and might not already know that there are different worlds out there, and different perspectives, and different views, and different standpoints. Just like right now in the United States, it's Pride Month. That's how it is. That's how we do it now. Okay, so I just want to put that into perspective. I want people to be happy. I want people to understand that it's not just your country, but a global world, and we all think differently. We all believe in different things. And I was hoping that a channel like mine would open up that perspective to think past one viewpoint. It would go beyond that and allow people to speak what they feel, and allow them to, you can't be angry. Being angry is not going to solve world problems. Creating world peace happens both within you and by listening to others from around the world. And the best way to start is to listen to people on an international based situation on the internet. This is the place where we can create world peace. This is why the Gen X generation is so fantastic, is because my generation, we just didn't see, we never saw it beyond, like we survived many things. We're survivors. We survived without technology. We don't have to have a phone to guide us into the abyss, into the world that we don't know. We found our ways through life, and we're still alive. I'm sure a lot of us are probably shocked to see that we're still alive. Even I'm like, wow, I'm still like standing. This is fantastic. But it is what it is. So just bear in mind that all these things play a role in your perspective. It's nothing more than understanding the next person next to you. By understanding the person across the room from you. By understanding that you're looking at somebody that's not in the same country as you on the internet. These are all the things that people forget. I think people assume that because we're behind the glass shield doesn't mean to say that we're next door to you. We're people from around the world, and meaning we're all going to have different perspectives. But when you come together and start listening to each other, that's when problems can be solved and to be discussed. It's not just about your personal internal issues. It's about letting those internal issues out, but also understanding from another person's standpoint, right? So that's the whole thing. So don't get mad at me when I'm like saying, it's Happy National Pride Month, because we are in the United States. I'm from the States. In America, this month is a big deal for everybody, okay? Everybody is allowed to celebrate what they decide to choose. I'm not repressing anything on my channel. I think it's important to have an open-minded discussion on everything. Just like I've lived in Africa, and I've grown up in Japan, and I can talk about 5 different countries. I lived in Indonesia. I spoke Indonesian, I spoke Japanese, I spoke a little bit of Afrikaans, not really much, but enough to sort of get around. And there are like many languages in Africa. And Africa is a continent, it's not a country. So, if you don't know that, then obviously you need to go hit the books and learn about different parts of the world. Okay, I haven't lived in Europe. I visited family in Europe, but I haven't necessarily lived there. I haven't gone to the Middle East. I've had family who's worked for people in Dubai and the Middle East in certain situations and places, I think dealing with architecture and building and construction, but I haven't lived there. I've not personally gone. So there are things that I don't know about stuff, but I do know that I don't think I'd want to personally go to some place like the Middle East because women don't have rights. At least I have rights here in the United States. So I'd rather stay in the United States than live in a country that doesn't appreciate a woman's choice of mind and freedom of speech and all that stuff. So that is why I'm back in the States. It would be nice if people would acknowledge that there are many things that are happening. Okay, thanks. Arigatou gozaimashita. Matashi sayonara and bye-bye. And it's just a small little discussion on representing the Rainbow Nation, just like in South Africa, we call our country the Rainbow Nation as well, but it means something different. But we're a world of many different colors, many different identities, and this is the time in the United States that people are celebrating it. Thank you again. I will be back, and I'm about to do